Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Marvin Ponders Politics. As we can see here on the screen today, we're looking at Ukraine, and I think everyone who follows any sort of news is familiar with the latest developments, you could say, in that regard. Just looking inside, headlines here inside the week that upended U.S.-Ukraine relations. Trump turns against Ukraine's. Trump is losing in Ukraine. On and on. G7 split over Ukraine as U.S. opposes Russian aggression label. On and on and on. So I think it's clear at this point that when Trump has been saying that he has a great deal and a way to end the war, that it's clear at this point that his quote unquote great deal is to just give Russia everything they wanted. And this was obvious to many people well before the election. And that's why many people did not vote for him, because he is a horrible negotiator and doesn't make good deals for really anyone except himself. Seems to him the word deal means extortion. What he thinks the word deal is what everyone else calls extortion. And so to him, everything is a transaction that somehow it only costs him. And we know from his past that even when things might cost him something, he takes forever to pay, if at all, and often would just drag people to court rather than pay them. So to him, the word deal is just another way of extortion. Looking at the news, we see that, he's turned completely on Ukraine. And again, this was kind of obvious way back before the election, but many people were saying, oh, let's give him a chance. He won, and he's appointing all these people around him who've said good things in the past, Marco Rubio, Kellogg, and then even after the inauguration, several of them kept saying promising things. And so there seems to be some hope, but I knew for sure that it was over once I saw that he was going to meet with Putin, just the two of them, and that was an obvious red flag, because we all know he's the most gullible person in the world at this point, while Putin is a former KGB spy, and so it was, and we know from the reporting from his first term that he admires Putin and generally thinks he's a smart guy, great guy of some sort. And so that some of the articles have said that he was like a teenage athlete meeting his superstar, his idol, in the presence of Putin. And we saw how he denigrated the American intelligence community in Finland when standing next to Putin, and when Putin said, "Oh, I had no involvement," he parroted everything Putin said. So we know that he believes Putin over the own American establishment. So him being able to meet Putin by just the two of them was obviously going to lead to Putin being able to convince Trump that everything Putin was saying was true, and that it was obvious that he was going to be able to be convinced of all the Russian propaganda and Putin's talking points, because he admires Putin and generally thinks he's a great guy, and has no concept or doesn't care at all about why American greatness is what it is, or even understand it. And so that also means that he walked into the room without really having a true understanding of who really held the cards in that room. And I mean, realistically, who still holds the cards, but he might not. So let's see what. But in the vein of let's say he really believes some of it, and what he could have done in terms of, since he's already proven that he doesn't care about any borders, and he wants to remake everything. Let's look at what he could have done had he been a useful person in that room instead of just being a complete Russian asset. So if we go over to the map, here's the Eurasian continent. And of course, the Ukraine war is happening over here. More or less, this is occupied by Russia. This, where is it? This is occupied by Ukraine, something like that, maybe a little shorter. And this is Russia, and they are slowly but surely kind of getting around here. And basically sounds like Trump is on board with at least ending, quote unquote, ending the war, freezing the war at the current front lines. Yet to be seen if he buys Putin's nonsense lines about, hey, there can be no peacekeeping troops, there can be no military in Ukraine, as that, I mean, it's likely that he will, because he's that gullible. But let's see about what could have happened. If you were really going to sell out Ukraine, okay, how could we get more out of Ukraine? Or not Ukraine. I think we're working tirelessly on that at the moment. How could you get more out of the deal for world peace, or for, especially given the other conflicts? And because as we know, basically in this deal that he's coming out with, Russia gains everything that they wanted. And so, but and that's because Trump walked into the room as the subservient, and he doesn't think strategically at all. But let's see, what could we have done instead? So the last few weeks, of course, we've had people going back and forth about, say, oh, he's doing distractions with Canada and Greenland and stuff. And I would remind people, it is not a distraction from him. He really does think that Canada should be a 51st state, should be part of America. He truly believes that. But let's what could we have done? And the ball is still out there. No, I think Ukraine is certainly not certainly not stupid to agree to that deal that is being put on the table. But what could be done instead? This is a deal that he could have put on the table. For example, maybe we keep the current front lines more or less. Maybe let's say Russia gets to claim all the way up to all the borders of these oblasts. That and then to the river. Not necessarily all the cities, but let's say that was the deal. He was going to put on the table. Russia gets to claim all that and keep all that. But then he could have also put on the table that Russia would have to give or sell America the Chukotka Autonomous Oblast, the one in the Far East, the one that's across the Bering Strait from Alaska, and that would go to the U.S. And that could be a federal district for a while, and maybe even come Kamchatka at the same time. But we would do this, and suddenly you've turned the Bering Strait into a U.S. only passage with the U.S. on both sides. So if you're truly worried about the Arctic Ocean, and again, he already doesn't care about territorial lines. He doesn't care about them. But he also doesn't care. He also can't think far enough ahead to get this done. You could have said, hey, this goes to America, and Russia gets to keep this. This goes to America, because then we would control the entire Bering Strait, and maybe Canada could breathe easy for a couple years, and knowing that we've already gotten some more Arctic territory. And then you could have even proposed something like, what's this one called? Khabarovsk, the Jewish Autonomous Oblast, or Primorsky Krai, because as many people know, this used to be part of China as well. And so, Trump could have put this on the table. Hey, you know what, Vlad? Give us this. Give China this. And give Japan back their islands. But the reason we're giving China this is to tell China, you get to come back to these territories, and in exchange, you leave Taiwan and Philippines alone. And so China gets to expand here. Taiwan gets to be left in peace. Philippines get to be left in peace. And, obviously the only one here who is coming out behind is Ukraine. And unfortunately, that's that's not an ideal outcome for Ukraine, but given that the current deal on the table is basically all of Russia's demands and nothing out of Russia, this would have been a better deal, and it could have potentially, it also, in theory, at least solves our the South China Sea, the Taiwan problem as well. And so, I mean, the question is, would we keep Kamchatka, or would we also put Kamchatka in the deal, or would we let Russia keep it? And then, we're going to have a Russia land border with America, at least here. But again, the important part is that we would control the Bering Strait, which seems to be, for the obvious, vital and important reasons that. Again, the question is, would we want to return Sakhalin to Japan as well? I know Sakhalin never was fully Japanese, but it was partially administered by Japan and other countries in the past. So, that could have been on the table too. But anyway, that's the video for the day. I just wanted to come on here and comment on the fact that, there could be ways to go about this that are at least beneficial to the U.S. And to broader world interests, even with disregarding the fact that we are trading we are moving map lines around, trading territory. It still would have. There still were ways to do it that would have been better. A deal like that, if held to, and I know how much this guy wants a Nobel Peace Prize, that could have been something that could have maybe convinced the Nobel Peace Prize people. Because I know I can tell you for sure that after he gets a Ukraine deal, he's going to immediately start bleeding. Or after whatever happens to Ukraine, once he thinks the deal is done, he's going to immediately start bleeding about how he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for ending that conflict. And so, because he doesn't understand the concept of justice, and doesn't care about it. So anyway, again, that's the video for today. That could have been a deal. Tell Putin, hey, you know what? Give up these lands to these other countries, and we're going to solve these other conflicts, and you keep that part of Ukraine. And otherwise, if you don't take this, Vlad, if you don't take this, we're going to flood Ukraine with more weapons, and keep the sanctions. That could have been the play, but instead, he's so stupid he can't see past his own narcissism and got played by a spy master. So anyway, that's the video again. Anyway, that's the video for today. And still, Slava Ukraini, and I hope. And sorry, I as an American, I'm sorry that this is the state of things. I wish our people had chosen differently back in November, but this is where we are, and so it's. It's unfortunate and sad that this is what things have come to, that we now have installed a Russian agent as our president, and he's giving Putin everything that he wanted. Anyway, have a good day, and we'll keep fighting on the good fight.